Rosemary Woods. Lost it at Super Bowl. Stand for the pledge, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd call this meeting of the Town of Plattsburgh Town Board to order for February 2nd, 2009. Roll call, please.
Bernard Bassett.
Here.
Thomas Wood.
Here.
Sheila Brockway.
Here.
Gerard Renedick.
Here.
Martin Mannix.
Here.
James Coffey.
Here.
Resolution 0860.
Resolved that the minutes of January 20th and January 26th be approved and the reading of the minutes be dispensed with.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Wood, second.
I'll second.
Ms. Brockway. For discussion, I'd offer, first of all, that be changed to 0960. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renedick.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernard Bassett.
Yes. This is the time when we ask if there's anyone who would like to address the board. We welcome and encourage them to do so. And if there isn't anyone, it's the time we move on to the next resolution. 61.
Resolved that the abstract of audited claims number 2A for the total amount of $3,020,562.19 be received as reviewed by the audit committee and the supervisor is hereby authorized to pay said abstracts.
Have a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Renedick, second.
Second.
Mr. Wood. Any discussion?
Is that really 2A or 2B? Because I have 2B here.
I've got
Should
2A.
be two, it should be A because it's the first.
Okay.
Would be the first of the year.
Thank you.
It's on the agenda.
It's to be on the agenda.
We'll get that changed.
Do we have two resolutions regarding the abstracts, because we had two abstracts?
No, the one resolution for the two.
For the two.
In a
Okay.
total amount of $3,020,562.19. Roll call?
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renedick.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernard Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 62.
Resolved to receive and place on file a report from Stephen Einhoff, Codes Enforcement Officer for the year end 2008.
A motion.
So,
Ms.
second.
Brockway, second that, Mr. Mannix. Any discussion?
I would just offer a comment. As I was driving quite a bit today, I had public radio on a few different times, and it was interesting. They were commenting that around the country, one of the signs of the depth of the recession is planning boards canceling meetings because they have nothing to do. There are no applications in front of them. And they had examples from all over the country. Interesting.
It is, and that hasn't been the case here.
It's interesting to point out that if we'd have had one permit per day, we still wouldn't have had enough days in the year to take care of what we'd have done all last year, because there was a total of 375 done in 2008. So that's again, that's a testament to this area.
Hopefully we can keep it going. Roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renedick.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernard Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 0963.
Whereas on October 1st, 2007, the Town Board of the Town of Plattsburgh adopted a serial bond resolution authorizing the financing of the cost in the amount of $750,000 of improvements to the Katyville-Morrisonville water line connection in and for the Town of Plattsburgh Consolidated Water District through the issuance of obligations of the town to provide funds for improvement at a total cost of no more than $800,000, including preliminary costs, all in accordance with the local finance law. And whereas the town board called a public hearing on January 5th, 2009, pursuant to the provisions of Section 202B of the town law to consider financing $50,000 additional cost of the project, and such hearing was duly noticed and duly held. And whereas on January 5th, 2009, the town board held such public hearing as required by law, and whereas the date hereof, the town board made findings and determinations to increase the cost of the project from $750,000 to $800,000 based upon evidence presented at said public hearing. Now therefore be resolved by the town board of the town of Plattsburgh as indicated.
So moved.
Second, any discussion?
I would just ask, I'm assuming, and I hate to assume anything, that this was a resolution that came from our bond council, because I read through the whole thing, couldn't find anything that looked like cut and paste that might have any problems with it, so I wanted to make sure that, having come from council, that all of the wherewithal that's in here is appropriate.
To the best of my understanding, yes.
And the same comment will go with the next one, because again, it's the same.
I think it's also important to note for the record that the expectation is that it won't be an additional 50, that hopefully it'll be somewhere in the neighborhood of half of that amount. But, as the project continues, there have been some extra costs.
So there's leeway in this.
There is leeway this time. Twice the leeway of what we anticipate needing. But we're not done yet, so
This is 50,000, this one says 50,500.
it's 50,000. Roll call.
Thomas Wood?
Yes.
Sheila Brockway?
Yes.
Laura Brennington?
Yes.
Martin Mannix?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Start looking at that agenda. Resolution 0964.
Whereas on October 1st, 2007, the town board of the town of Plattsburgh adopted a serial bond resolution authorizing the financing of the cost in the amount of $1 million of improvements to the Moffett Road water line extension in and for the town of Plattsburgh Consolidated Water District through the issuance of obligations of the town to provide funds for such improvement at a total cost of no more than $2 million, including preliminary costs, all in accordance with local finance law. And whereas the town board called a public hearing on January 12, 2009, pursuant to the provisions of Section 202B of the town law, to consider financing of $100,000 additional cost to the project, and such hearing was duly noticed and duly held. Whereas on January 12, 2009, the town board held such public hearing as required by law, and whereas the date hereof, the town board made findings and determinations to increase the cost of the project from $1 million to $1,100,000 based upon the evidence presented at said public hearing, and therefore be resolved by the town board of the town of Plattsburgh as indicated.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Renner, second.
I'll second.
Ms. Broccoli. Any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood?
Yes.
Sheila Brockway?
Yes.
Laura Brennington?
Yes.
Martin Mannix?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 0965.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh code enforcement officials are required to maintain license. And whereas it is in the best interest of the town to remain current and informed concerning changes in regulation, therefore it is resolved that Stephen Einhoff and Alan Reese, code enforcement officers, be allowed to attend the Northern Adirondack Code Enforcement Officials Association 12th Annual Educational Conference held on March 2nd through March 5th in Lake Placid at Crown Plaza Resort and Golf Club. It is further resolved that $480 for conference and $681.52 for lodging and for meals be charged to the codes and zoning budget.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Wood, second.
Second.
Ms. Brockway. Any discussion? Roll call.
Thomas Wood?
Yes.
Sheila Brockway?
Yes.
Laura Brennington?
Yes.
Martin Mannix?
Yes.
Bernie Bassett?
Yes. Resolution 66.
Whereas it is in the best interest of the town to remain current and informed concerning changes in regulation, municipal basic accounting, therefore it is resolved that Nikki Martin and Stephanie Mitchell from the accounting and budgeting offices be allowed to attend the basic accounting school to governmental accounting held on March 24th through March 26th in the city of Binghamton. And it is further resolved that $170 for the conference and $602 for lodging and meals be charged to the general fund shared services budget.
A motion.
So moved.
Mr. Rennerdat,
Second.
Mr. Wood. Any discussion? I note, and I'm sure you're probably aware, Stephanie, as a new employee, hasn't had an opportunity to attend this kind of training, and as we're looking for a little cross-training within departments. I think it's a good thing that she's able to go. And it might also play out in a very unique way this year because of the changes in software and a little extra attention to how we're meeting our needs and trying to be efficient with our manpower. Something we discussed the other day. I had a meeting with Christian Ballin concerning the Harris software and shared with the department heads present that we aren't going to be bringing more staff in anytime soon, given the economy and everything else. But maybe what we can do is free up more time with the existing staff to meet our needs by upgrading software, and eliminating duplication, paper trails that aren't necessary in the electronic world, and so on. So, this is information that I hope they're also seeking, and how do we streamline, which is a way to be efficient and economical in our town government. Anyone have any questions or concerns? Not, roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renegade.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernard Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 67.
Whereas the town passed local law number 1 in August of 1970 entitled A Local Law Regulating a Code of Ethics and a Board of Ethics for the Town of Plattsburgh. A copy of said local law is attached. And whereas a considerable period of time has passed since said local law was passed, and it is the desire of the town board to enact a new code of ethics and to establish a new board of ethics that will be more responsive to the numerous changes that have occurred over the last 38 years. Whereas Supervisor Bassett has introduced proposed local law number 2 of the year 2009 entitled A Local Law repealing Town of Plattsburgh Local Law number 1 of the year 1970, a local law relating to the Code of Ethics and a Board of Ethics for the Town of Plattsburgh, and enacting a local law establishing a Code of Ethics and a Board of Ethics for the Town of Plattsburgh. Now therefore be it resolved that a public hearing be held on said proposed Town of Plattsburgh Local Law number 2 of the year 2009 on Monday, February 23rd, 2009 at 6:30 p.m. at the Town Hall, 151 Banker Road, Plattsburgh, New York. And it is further resolved that the town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to have public hearing notice published in the Press Republican newspaper as provided by law.
A motion?
So moved.
Mr. Wood, second.
Second.
Ms. Brockway, any discussion? Roll.
Is this particular one the final copy?
Yes.
Yes.
One of the things Mr. Coffey did, and
Stated.
you'll note on the bottom of each page, the footnote identifies the document and the date of this particular publication. I don't even remember how many times this one was drafted. And as you create a file, it's awful easy when there's only a word or a phrase or two that's been changed to find them being mixed. So the date of 1/29/09 should be the one that's in front of you. It's a good way to sort these out.
He also managed to number the pages.
And underline the Press Republican, by the way.
And underline the
That's a hat trick.
Well, we're getting high tech here now.
It's amazing sometimes the little things where it's hard to break the cycle of duplication and make a change, positive change. But anyway, I think we're there. Something that's been discussed a long time. I give a lot of credit to Mr. Renedek for keeping this alive and bringing it to our attention. And, we also attended a conference in Potsdam this past fall, got a little more information there, and Mr. Coffey has been processing this, making calls, doing research, so I think we probably have something about as good as it can be right now.
I would agree.
We'll see how it works. If there are no other questions or comments, roll call, please.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renegade.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernard Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 68.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh maintains conditions of employment for its employees and seeks consistency thereof, and whereas the consideration of sick time as time worked has created issues of concern with employees and supervisors when the occasional need for extending the workday or overtime hours to perform duties or complete requests by supervisors and department heads arises. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board agrees to treat, approve sick leave as time worked in computing overtime. And it be further resolved that the supervisor be and he is hereby authorized to enter into such agreements as it is necessary to effectuate the goals and objectives of this resolution. And that this resolution shall be considered as an exception versus change in policy or practice not to amend contracts and agreements once settled. And it be further resolved that a certified copy of this resolution be given to the budget officer.
Motion?
So moved.
And the second, Mr. Manis.
Okay.
Any discussion?
We're actually, this particular thing is in the contract, and we're actually changing the contract to allow the sick leave to be counted. Is that correct?
We may not need to do an actual amendment or an MOU. We might just need to have the acknowledgement of this by all the department heads and the units that bargain with the town.
It's more of a
And
matter,
that's it.
correct me if I'm wrong, but it's more of a matter of clarifying the issue than it is of amending the contract.
Right. And I think, as we discussed in work session, we're not really excited about amending, opening, altering contracts. This resolution authorizes our budget officer, when calculating leave time, to use approved leave time as work time. We had previously agreed that it was logical for call-outs, emergencies, weekends, evenings, that those people, if they had taken a sick day, would get paid their time and a half.
This has been past practice?
No, it has not, and that's really the problem. In the existing agreement, sick leave was left out in the list, including vacation time, comp time, and so on. So we did need to address that. And I have to say, employees have been very reasonable about this. Not that we haven't had a few conversations, but there hasn't been any anarchy or anyone formally challenging that. But it makes it difficult for supervisors to manage their staff, and especially in situations. Now the call-outs, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, there's a water line break. If somebody had been sick on Monday, they go out. That would seem pretty clear to all of us. But we had a recent situation with one of our staff in-house that had a water customer who was upset and irate 5 minutes before her time to end. Working very well with that resident for the next half hour or so, was able to resolve the issue, calm the situation down, and the employee stayed. Didn't hang up and say, my clock's done. That was stressful. She had to be very skillful. Something that could have been a problem that was totally resolved. I think she deserves time and a half for that half hour. And I think you all do too. So really, as we tried to do the right thing, the bottom line is you've got to be broad-based in your thinking on this.
As long as I understand it, it's not actually change the contract, I'm okay with it.
We're not changing the contract.
And I would just like to add that I'm very pleased with the language in here, basically that it's saying that it shall be considered an exception versus a change in policy or practice. Having worked with Sheila on the negotiations with some of our people, I agree with the supervisor that we don't want to set the tone that we're encouraging our employees that when it's 4 o'clock, it's time to hang up the phone and get out the door. We want to reward them, and we want to take into consideration everything that might possibly make it easier for them to work as public servants, which is what we would like them to be. We want them to, the customer's always right, holds more true in public service than it does anything else. And I'm very pleased that we have an employee who saw the need to do that, and if we need to, in effect, reinterpret what our meaning was to the language, I would agree that's what we're doing. by doing this exception, we're interpreting what our intent was, not amending the contract.
And I agree with Jerry. I don't want the contract open every time somebody has a problem with it. I don't mind clarifying that, but
Exactly.
we worked hard enough on it that when it's closed, and that's the way it is. But
And I guess as a footnote, that employee was not paid extra for that time because the contract didn't
Wasn't-
allow that to happen. So we have to fix that.
yeah, that's right. I agree with that.
Anything else? And I do know people, appreciate an effort to make the working conditions fair and equitable. I know they do.
And I understand the comment Mr. Benedett just mentioned about the customer, but I take it with a grain of salt sometimes as to whether it is always right.
Well, and I understand where you're going with this, and you're right, but, we are
Yeah, I
public
know.
servants, and all the employees who work in the town, basically, they would do well to, keep that in mind. The customer's always right, and we'll iron out any wrinkles in the fabric of it later on.
Okay, roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes?
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renninger.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes. Resolution 69.
Whereas the town of Plattsburgh has brought charges against an employee pursuant to the provisions of Section 75 of the Civil Service Law of the State of New York, the hearing of which proceeding is scheduled to commence on February 4th, 2009. And whereas Mark Rogers of Plattsburgh, New York has agreed to serve as hearing officer in said proceeding pursuant to the provisions of Section 75 of the Civil Service Law of the State of New York. Therefore, be it resolved that the town board designates Mark Rogers as hearing officer and authorizes the supervisor of the town and/or the legal representative of the town to notify Mr. Rogers of his designation. And to be further resolved, that a copy of this resolution be given to the budget officer.
Have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Renner,
I'll
second
second
that, Ms. Brockway. Any discussion?
Since there's a new person coming into this late, is there any deposition or something that has to be done before this?
No. No, and I say that fairly confidently, a number of phone conferences today, and meetings with attorneys, and that doesn't seem to be an issue. Any other questions or comments?
It's necessary due to the withdrawal of the previous.
Correct. Correct. The previous hearing officer has removed himself. I just got that information today. Roll call?
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Renninger.
Yes.
Mannix.
Yes.
Bernie Bassett.
Yes.
And this fellow's still going to be able to start in a couple of days, right?
Yes.
That's great.
If there is no other business, this is a unique, shorter agenda.
How'd you do that?
You must have earned that as a result of those long ones or something. but,
Long work sessions. We got it all compacted.
The work sessions help a great deal when we have time to discuss the resolutions and refine them to, best represent what our intent and goals are. Hopefully we'll be able to keep that agenda, that practice up. It doesn't always work. Sometimes things come up, but it does make it a lot easier.
Bernie, I know at the last work session that there was discussion about resolutions that were passed at the work session, and we just, since we do have a little bit of time, just to elaborate that you did check with the Association of Towns, so if there's a clarification.
Sure. I contacted Lori Miffin today with Association of Towns. She's an attorney. She's one that I've personally had some conversations with in the past. I feel very comfortable in communicating with her, and I know others have sought her advice in the past. And I shared with her the issue that we announce our meetings the first 4 Mondays of the month, with the exception being if the holiday falls on a Monday, of course, we reschedule. And that the first and third are what we call regular formal meetings, where we will tape them for airing on local cable TV and do the majority of our business. And that the second and fourth meetings that are identified at our organizational, our open meetings. They're open to the public. We oftentimes have representatives of the media there as well. But I said those are work sessions. We don't have our ties on. It's much more informal. We can discuss issues and debate items of concern. Many times have individuals present items to the board. I said, but given the Association of Towns meeting is during one of our regular formal meetings, we may be in a position to pass, for an example, an abstract to pay the bills. The goal certainly is not to, but, and I shared with her how at the previous meeting we had a resolution that was a fiscal resolution that was timely, that needed to be passed before the end of the month. We did that. She very quickly responded that that wasn't a problem. She said, you're in total compliance with open meeting laws. Your meetings are open, they're published, they're announced, they're set with a schedule. And really, she said, it was almost like a rose is a rose. If you call it formal work session, informal, she said, you are subject to all of the laws and regulation concerning open meetings, but you also have all of the rights to take action as you would in any announced meeting. She began to bring up something about, is this something new you're going to do because of a meeting being canceled? And I said, no. And I shared previous meeting, and it does happen once in a while. It's the exception, not the rule. And she said, well, there's no issue there. And then she brought up something about an agenda, and I said, well, we always have a working agenda, and that would list resolutions we're going to discuss or presentations. And she was extremely comfortable that, that was not a problem. And I have to believe, certainly don't know, and I know other towns do a lot less activity than we do, but most towns have one meeting a month, and it's hard to believe. I can't fathom that. We've had, this is the first meeting in February. We're on resolution 69 already. So, I would assume as things come up, as long as you're following, you're totally transparent following the open meeting laws, it would seem logical that could happen. I guess you could pass one at a cocktail party or something. Other than that, and I was very concerned. I'm glad you brought that up, Joanne. I was concerned to also follow up specifically because we are losing a regular meeting. But I feel work sessions are incredibly important for us to discuss issues.
One correction on that, though. Not necessarily everyone goes without their tie at those meetings.
Well, this is correct. This is correct.
Sheila always goes in.
Yeah, that's right, I don't have a tie.
I just wanted to make sure that it was clarified, because there was some concern at the last work session that whether or not the public was properly informed, and whether or not legal, where was a legality or an issue raised that something that was passed at a work session might not have the same legal impetus if it wasn't held at a board meeting. So I'm glad that you got an answer to that. I'm glad that we're completely in compliance. It's because there are times, I would agree, there are times when you really need to expedite something and move forward. And we're not trying to throw a cover over it. We're not trying to hide it, but it should be done when it's done and as expeditiously as possible. So again, I thank you for calling Lori on that, because I was concerned that we are following the letter of the law.
And when we might as well, as long as we're on our TV night, say that anyone's invited to come.
Exactly.
At our regular meeting or our work sessions. They're all at the same time, so any Monday except for the 5th Monday, and that one Monday that we're going to all be gone in February. You're welcome to come at 6:30.
Not all are going to be gone.
You can't have a meeting. And it's also worthy to note, Amy was telling me today that she's had a number of queries about the home grant. The information got out there thanks to our friends in the media, and that was extremely important. We should note that next Monday, which would be February 9, at 6:30, we will have an informational meeting to identify what homes would be eligible for this grant money to help improve, energize, make homes safer. There is an income eligibility. We're certainly looking at seniors, those who may have some handicapping disabilities, individuals who get advanced start, homes and incomes, as I said, that would qualify. It's owner-occupied residence, not rental units. But we will have a formal presentation 6:30, February 9, and after that, applications will be available. Anyone who thinks they might be eligible certainly can pick up a application after that at the clerk's office. And that will be an important work session. And it's kind of a classic example, I think, where I'm sure residents would be much more comfortable coming to the board and having a session like that when it is in a less formal work session. Makes it a lot better for the community. Infomercial. Anyone have anything else this evening? With that said, I would ask for a motion
So
to
moved.
adjourn. Mr. Wood, a second.
I'll second.
Ms. Brockway. There's no discussion. We'll have a roll call.
Thomas Wood.
Yes.
Sheila Brockway.
Yes.
Gerard Rendinger.
Yes.
Martin Mannix.
Yes.
Bernard Bassett.
Yes, we'll stand adjourned at 7:03. Everyone drive safely.
You know, on the government channels, they all stand up and mill around talking while they're on TV, so if you want to stand up and mill around. I've seen this on many of the TV stations. where they do
During
that.
debates, they walk in front of the cameras even
Yeah.
sometimes casually.
Throw shoes.
Please.
Are we going to